Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efene, the great Malabite. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Dr. Abati.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning, Mr. Efene.
Of course, Rufai, just around the corner. He will join us in a short while. Good morning, viewers out there. We'll start the review with This Day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. Well, we'll start with the story above the masthead, economic hardship. Sanwo-Olu intervenes, reduces working days for civil servants. 25% transport rebate returns 100,000 trailers of rice for 300,000 residents. 31 hospitals to deliver pregnant women for free. Yes, the subnationals, in this case Lagos State, also doing its bit to reduce the pains and the pangs of recent economic measures on the citizenry. And that outreach yesterday, if I may call it that, and Dr. Abati, you were there with a number of other anchors in that chat with the governor. And he reeled off a number of measures to ease the pains on the citizens of Lagos State. Well, I'm sure by the time these promises are unfolded and Lagosians start seeing these bags of rice, perhaps, and of course, the rebates and transport fares. But I don't know whether that will be restricted to only government-owned transport facilities, or they will carry along the private buses, aka the danfos of this world, that also still serve a lot of people in Lagos State. Now, the other story there, Tinubu, no going back on economic reforms until vision for nation is achieved. Recommits to creating investment opportunities, tackling poverty, crack down on BDCs, not solution, says Bismarck Rawane, the economist. Well, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, sticking to his guns, if you will, that these reforms, there's not going to be reversals. We are forging ahead in spite of the pains. Well, but it's also still promising that this administration will create investment opportunities and tackle poverty. Which brings us to the lead story of these day newspapers, Nigeria's economic reset. Scores see new opportunities amid pains. These day editors review impact of devaluation on Africa's largest market. Present 5 ideas for a new Nigeria. Part 1. Of course, these day editors forward-looking as ever, not just criticizing, but also looking at areas where this government can really focus to move the economic forward. Of course, top on the list is oil and gas. Our crude oil, still the very old reliable source of foreign exchange. It's unfortunate that in the past, what we have now is that we cannot even meet our OPEC quota. So with the right incentives, Nigerian oil and gas can add another 500,000 barrels per day of oil in the near term. And I just hope the government is looking at this area, because with the oil majors pulling out from the onshore facilities, creating opportunities for Nigerian professionals in this field. Of course, meeting OPEC quota will produce the dollars needed to meet the currency market. And I'm sure if we can also, with all the efforts in place, stop theft of our crude oil, so that every oil that leaves Nigeria bring dollar into the coffers of government, then, of course, we'll be making headway. So this is an area is like the low-hanging fruit, because this is an area we have depended on, so we cannot afford to treat it with levity. Of course, with the the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act, already in place, setting the stage, the best practices, investors know what to expect when they invest in the oil and gas sector. So that is an area that must be focused on so that the challenges facing this sector can be dealt with and we ramp up oil production. Of course, another area is technology. Nigeria's new tech revolution. Many see opportunities in this area. The area of data aggregation, cloud computing, IT outsourcing, software development, network, etc. Rufai, this is an area that is your passion. Yes. And with the minister, the young minister who has done things in the private sector, in that Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, this is an area that Nigeria can play. Of course, with Nigerian growing tech talent, who will... Of course, the problem is this tech talent staying at home. Because what we see now, even in the banks, many of their tech whiz kids have left the shore. So if we can keep this tech talent at home, and they provide tech services for global players around the world and earn dollars for this economy. Of course, that is an area that can change the face of our economy as we speak. Now, agriculture, food security, because the challenge we have, why people are shouting from rooftops, people are protesting here and there, is because of food. Hardship, inability to get food, food expensive. But besides that, Nigerian foodstuff now cheap because of the depreciation of the naira. So people are coming from other West African countries to come and buy our food. Yes, we've tried to stop people from taking food out of the country, but the real work is that we will just have to produce more so that we'll not only feed our citizens, we also feed the sub-region. And we can do it. We have the land. It's just to put the right technology in place, the right policy in place to encourage mechanized farming so that Nigerian farmers don't just rely on the old ways of farming, which has been serving us anyway, but we need to move to the next level so that these farmers can cultivate more acres of land if they have assisted mechanized clearing of these farmlands and other technology, improved seedlings. Rufai, you always talk about improved seedlings. If they can get that, of course, we will not only feed ourselves as a nation, but we'll be able to feed the sub-region and even beyond, and export. So it is an area the government must pay attention to. So when President Bola Tinubu declared emergency on food security, he talked about the acreage of land will be cultivating over time. But we have not seen real action in this area. And that is where the Agric Minister must be up and doing. Meeting with the state commissioners so that it's not only the federal government, but every state seen doing something in the agric sector. Of course, another area that will just change the face. Social media influencing. A lot of young Nigerians are making good money in the e-commerce space with social media like TikTok and Snapchat, Instagram, and to some extent Facebook. So it's an area where Nigerians can continue to make money. Of course, with the devaluation of the naira, many of these influencers have seen their income quadrupled. And this is an area we must continue to engage. And of course, there's the security services. With security service, as insecurity still a huge challenge in this country. Of course, people can invest, and people are investing in security outfits. Of course, bodyguards, companies springing up that are also engaged in the marketing and use of security gadgets, bringing tech into the security space. And security is indeed big business, bodyguard services, tech services, CCTV services, among others. These are areas that are also big business right now in the economy. Perhaps Ruben Rufai and Ayo, I know you want to weigh in on these key areas we can look at to move the economy out of the doldrums, as it were.
Okay, well, comment. Oil and gas, that's a no-brainer. What we're told is
the old reliable.
Oil and gas is the mainstay of the Nigerian economy, responsible for 90-something% of forex earnings and all of that, right? Nigeria has even more gas reserves than it has fuel. But the problem that we have in that sector is the issue. Pipeline vandalism, crude oil theft, and inability of Nigeria to meet its OPEC production quota. So even when we suggest that, Nigeria should ramp up production, there are other issues that will have to be addressed, okay? If we have if we can't do more than 1.4 million barrels per day, and that 1.4 million, what they do is they add condensate to it, which means that we have an issue of capacity, and even our refineries are not functioning at the downstream level. So, but it's a no-brainer to say ramp up production so that you can earn more forex. That's the whole idea. And at a time when oil price is going up because of crisis in the Middle East and other issues within the global space, Nigeria will have had the opportunity to get more revenue, get more forex. In fact, the projection is that before the end of this year, there is a possibility of the spot price of crude oil going up to $100, on the spot price. But if we don't produce, then we don't earn. Then there was the issue you raised about tech. Again, that also is a no-brainer. Technology is the new wave of the world. This morning, Reuters was discussing artificial intelligence. And look at the example of NVIDIA, that is earnings and revenue, rose by about 265%. The net effect within the tech sector is from US to Japan, where the Nike is up. And then, of course, even on Wall Street, artificial intelligence, the tech sector is a big thing. So technology. But the thing is that Nigeria has to provide the enabling environment for the tech startups. Not that Nigeria will wake up tomorrow again and start putting restrictions in place, behaving as if we're in the 18th century, to use one phrase that came up this morning. Social media influencing. Yes, again, e-commerce. Take the example of Reddit, a social media company. They are going to put out an IPO now. That's just social media doing business on social media, on website. So a lot of people doing business with Instagram, with TikTok, with Facebook in this country. Look at many of the people in what is it called, Nollywood. They've migrated into YouTube and Facebook, and they make a lot of money. If I know one person, who says that he makes noise on YouTube because it's a source of revenue for him. And when people quarrel with him and they abuse him, he says he just looks at them because they're actually helping him to make money. That person shall remain unnamed. Then security services. Well, I don't know how well security services can do, considering the fact that most of the people who use security services, they pay police. You rent police in Nigeria, even the policemen that are not enough. But if sector grows,
the federal government, the can enforce that pulls policemen from all these big men, they will go and pay for proper bodyguard to help them. So it's because we are allowing that to happen.
But you know, these security companies have been there all this while. Do our people patronize them? So your report is talking about technology and all of that. Well, if you stop people from getting a policeman, so that if you don't rent a police again, then the private sector involved in security business will do well. But I'm waiting for that government that will stop it. Every Inspector General of Police comes up and says, oh, don't use policemen to carry madam's bags to the market. If you see any big woman now, you still see our policemen carrying bags for wives of public officials. Agriculture, the whole thing. We've been talking about agriculture since the 70s. Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution, diversify the economy. Yesterday, when the National Economic Council met, they were still talking agriculture. Every week is agriculture, diversify the economy. But you can't gain from agriculture if you don't do mechanized farming. If you don't provide security for farmers to go to the farm. But you know, your report was talking about optimism, but there are challenges that also need to be.
Of course, we have to deal with these challenges.
So concerning agriculture,
yeah.
I think part of the biggest problems are, number one, is going to be that of yield per hectare. Nigeria has a very low yield per hectare compared to other countries. Secondly, storage is another problem. Post-harvest loss is a big problem. Logistical bottlenecks and cold chain storage. So, for instance, when we list our GDP, we talk about crop, production and agriculture. We don't really dwell on animal production, and there's so much areas in animal production. I'll give you an area, for instance. The sale of animal semen is a big sector on its own. If you have a variety of semen of an animal you want to sell for artificial insemination and all of that, a vial of semen can go as much as over $2,000 or $3,000. That's another big sector on its own. Also, pasture and range management, planning of things like Northern Gamba, commercialization of pasture. There's so many areas we have not even tapped. But I think the problem also is value addition and understanding the value chain of agriculture. We've never really had a minister that understands the value chain of agriculture in a while. You know, what we always just do have are people that come in there, yeah, they can understand some part of the value chain, but a holistic understanding of the value chain. Also, looking at synergy between agriculture and tech. There's agri-tech. Some companies are using that, they're using agri-tech for crowdfunding for agriculture, farm crowding and the likes and all of that. Also, there's also artificial intelligence agriculture. AI can be used to simulate better planting seasons and all of that. You're talking about security. Technology can be used for security. So take, for instance, with all this kidnapping and all of that, you can have a security application that tracks volumes of transaction in terrorist or kidnapping hotspots. And when you see a very irregular volume of transaction using AI, you can detect it and call that person in. And 1 out of 5 times, it might be like a ransom they are trying to pay. So there are so many areas we can look in, with all of these areas. But the question is, does the government have the political will to be able to do it? Financial technology is one of them. You can see how the government has clamped down on things on Binance and things like that. So these are many areas we should look at.
Yeah. I just very quickly talk about social media influencing, especially from where, in terms of job creation and also in terms of revenue generation. The first thing is that under the create, I think it should be very well managed, not just under Mr. Bosun Tijani's ministry in terms of technology, but also for the creative economy. We have had a lot of creatives emerge from the advent of social media influencing. And I don't think we've been able to capture the revenue that has come into Nigeria through that. Beyond YouTube revenue, there's also Twitter revenue. So a number of people on X, well, now called X, now get their blue tick in order to be able to generate some kind of trend and then are paid monthly, paid in dollars. And so this comes into the account. So if this sector is actually well shepherded, then we would see quite a significant input in terms of revenue. And I think that the editors of this, they have hit the nail on the head because we don't often look at this part. Then look at job creation. A number of young people leave university. We talk about the challenges we have in the job market. and they just become content creators. In fact, if you speak to a young child today, some young children, what do you want to become in future? It's no longer doctors and lawyers. I want to be a social media influencer. It's become a job option for people. And mind, that's why the fact that it looks...
somebody who just abandoned studies of medicine
to become an...
And
there are many,
talking about
many,
digital marketing.
Talk about approach co-doctor. There are many doctors online who are making a killing. In fact, the way Dr. Bass is looking at me is like he's going to open his own YouTube channel very soon. It's like, are you serious? The money is there. But absolutely. Beyond that, even music, we export our music through this. So there's so much potential in that area, and I think it's not, we need to tap into that. And when we look at that, if we're looking at suggesting that as one of the, a great income generator for the nation, then the government must support. So oftentimes, I mean, when we had the ban on X, it showed a clear misunderstanding of the potential or the revenue impact of what that decision did.
You mean Twitter's mission in Nigeria?
Beyond Twitter's mission, even some people that were out of jobs. There are a lot of people who are, a lot of young people who are engaged because of the activities on X. Legit.
Yeah.
Some of them might trend for the wrong reasons, but a number of people legitimately do their businesses. And then we talked about the impact on SMEs, MSMEs, and how they've leveraged social media to be able to use as, for e-commerce and be able to use to advertise their businesses. We've seen people who have PhDs dancing on Instagram to attract customers, so many things. So I love the fact that we're not limited in our thinking and just leaning on traditional forms of when it comes to economy recovery. We must explore new frontiers. That's what the rest of the world is doing. During Road to Six segment, during business segment, we talked about AI. I don't think we fully tapped into that just yet. In fact, we're still grappling with X and when the world has moved forward to a metaverse and an alternative universe. So we have to look into that. So when we finish this, I'll do a little video, so I'll post on X and Instagram as a social media influencer and generate some dollars, much needed dollars for the Nigerian economy.
Okay.
But thank you. Thank you very much.
Caveat is government should not now have the mindset of overtaxing and killing the industry with taxes.
Yeah, or
overregulating, because now so they do.
Yes, not overregulated.
Well,
just allow it.
We just had to stay with that story.
Yeah, I'm surprised you took only one newspaper.
No, but we just had to, because we're talking about
nepotism.
No, it's not, because we're talking about moving the economy forward.
Yes, very important conversation.
You can understand why we had to do that, Ruben.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ifeni, and I'm sure the conversation will go forward. A number of people have conversation. I believe it's in this day newspaper.
Yes, Nigeria's newspaper
Record, absolutely.